So this is where the cool kids dwell. Oh yes, this is the coveted space where cameras and lenses desire to be. This means that you are going to be used often, sometimes daily. And when it's time to go off and do a shoot, you are in the starting lineup. And then there is this other place that holds purchases that probably were not the best. Camera bags that wonder, will I ever be used again? Probably not. Backdrops that we thought would be useful, but maybe not quite so much. Old boxes that we just can't seem to throw away. But the saddest part about this closet is held in these weird little Canon bags that nobody can quite figure out what they're supposed to do. And they hold lenses that just don't get used that often. So today, we are going to talk about 3 lenses that spend most of their time in this closet and not on the front of a camera. Does anybody say I want to spend thousands of dollars on a lens that's going to stay in the closet? No, we're not crazy, but it does take time to figure out which gear is going to work for you. Don't get me started on camera bags. But when it comes to lenses, oh man, it can take some trial and error to figure out which ones are going to fit your style of photography and the things that you want to do. Unfortunately, you may run across some lenses that don't line up with your vision. And today we're going to talk about 3 lenses that mostly just stay in my closet. The first lens that rarely makes it out of my bag is actually a legend. It is the Canon EF 100mm 2.8 macro, and it's an L lens as well. L. The 100mm macro lens. Awesome lens. It's great for doing what you want it to do. I bought this lens when I was a wedding photographer. And I bought this lens specifically for ring pictures. And when I tell you, if you're a wedding photographer, this is a must-have. It takes beautiful ring pictures. But then I stopped doing wedding photography. And when I stopped doing wedding photography, this lens lost its place in my bag. I would carry it around with me when I did events, maybe to take pictures of cupcakes, but it's so tight that it's really good for taking pictures of small things, but for many details, it just is not wide enough. Oh, and I did try to use this lens for portrait photography. And I remember when I showed my client the picture, she was horrified. The lens is so sharp, but that's when I learned that sometimes sharpness is not always the best thing. It's like you could see every little skin cell on her face. It was crazy how sharp this lens was, and that was the last time that I ever used it for portraits ever again. Oh, and finally, it's like super slow focusing. And when I mean super slow, I mean like turtle slow. I mean like focus, go make you a cup of coffee, come back, slow. It's like super duper slow. And for these reasons, it just lost its place in my camera bag. I'm almost scared to say the next one. The next lens that rarely makes it out of my closet, it's iconic, it's a legend. It is the EF 85mm 1.2 L. So when I bought this lens, it was arguably one of the best lenses on the planet Earth. It was a legend. The 85 millimeter, the EF 1.2 L. It was a great lens. But when I got it, I found that it actually wasn't the lens, it was the focal length. Just wasn't the focal length for me. I was following some photographers who had made a career off of this one focal length. And I'm like, oh man, look what she's doing with an 85. I've got to get an 85. And then I got an 85 and I found that it just was a little too tight for what I like to do. I like to switch between headshots, medium shots, and full length shots. And I like to keep a close proximity to my clients as well. And the 85 just would not allow me to do that. I had to back up a little too far to get the shots that I wanted to get sometimes. And for that reason, I stopped bringing it with me. So I guess the equivalent would be like you dating somebody because everybody else is like, oh my gosh, they're so beautiful, they're so great. But they just don't get you going, you know? And I found that for me, the 85 just didn't do it like the 50 did. So I had to break up with my 85 because the 50 was where my heart was. Are you ready for some controversy? This last lens that I rarely bring with me, actually, I don't even have it with me right now. I'm letting one of my friends use it because I hardly ever use it, is the EF 24 to 70 millimeter 2.8 L. I just stopped using it. Don't get me wrong. This lens is a legend. And I will say, if you can only afford to get one really nice lens, I highly recommend a 24 to 70. I did so much great work with this lens, and I go back and I look at it. I've stopped using it for a couple of years now. I still find that a lot of my top pictures were coming from this lens. I used it so much. But then I dived into prime lenses. The 24 to 70 is fantastic, and if you can only get one lens, that's the one you get. However, if you have the opportunity to get more than one lens, you'll find that some lenses sort of overshadow it. If you know me, you know that one of my go-to lenses is my 50 millimeter 1.2. Has a wider aperture, sharper pictures, and just this quality that you get from a 50 millimeter prime that I still, after all these years, can't really find words to express. Also, I use a 35 now. My 35 is actually a macro lens. It does beautiful work and it falls within that 24 to 70 focal length. And then, now I also use a 15 to 35 zoom, which allows me to get wider than a 24 to 70. And it allows me to do some things that I could not do with the 24 to 70. And then on the top end, I use a 70 to 200. So with all these other lenses being used and that I have the pleasure to use, the 24 to 70 just doesn't find its way on my camera much like it used to. Even though it is a great lens and I highly recommend it, but I have some other lenses that just do the same thing and they do it just a little bit better, just a little bit, but enough that it makes me fall in love with my other lenses. So what's the final word? R-E-N-T. Rent, baby. Rent. Look, I've found that so many photographers don't know that you can rent lenses and not buy them. So the final word is rent, baby. Rent. Rent the lenses that you think you really want to buy. Use them, see if it fits your style. And if it does and you find that it's something that you cannot live without, then you go out and you spend the big money on it. But before then, try it out. You know, play the field. See what's out there. See what suits you. And with all those things said, whatever you're shooting with, I just hope that you're enjoying it, and I hope that you're using it, and that it's not sitting in a closet somewhere collecting dust. With all those things said, y'all have a great day, and I'll see you next time. Peace.